On this episode of the Grizz Podcast, I have the privilege to interview Michael Talley. Mike is a devoted follower of Christ, a husband, a father, an Air Force vet with 3 tours in Iraq, 1 in Afghanistan, and 1 in South Korea. He is also a church planner and pastor in Thornton, Colorado at Church 8025. We talk about basketball, the outdoors, family, parenting, and why many churches in America are just failing to attract men and impact men and produce real leaders who actually change the world. And we talk about much more. Man, I just came away with so many incredible nuggets of truth and encouragement from this brother, and I know you will too. I also feel like I came away with a broken freaking nose as he convicted and challenged me about what I'm not doing with my own neighbors. Now, I'm going to come back at the end of this interview to wrap it all up. So stay tuned for that. And here we go. Oh, yeah.
You're listening to the Grizz Podcast, where our mission is to help boys become men and to help men become better men. It's going to be raw. It's going to be real. And it's gonna be relevant. Now, here's your host, Jason George.
I'm your Huckleberry.
Yo, Mike Talley, welcome to the Grizz Podcast, my brother.
What's up, man? Good to be here.
Yep. Where are you at, man? You're out in Colorado. Where at?
I'm sitting in an office in Thornton, Colorado. It's a suburb of Denver. We're about 12 miles from downtown Denver, just on the north side.
Okay, cool. How far are you from what really matters, like the national park, wildlife, mountains?
But actually, I was just up in the mountains this week with my family camping. We were supposed to spend 3 days, but we had 40 to 50 mile an hour sustained winds. You got a 2-year-old in a tent with that. It's not a fun camping trip, but we're an hour and a half from Rocky Mountain National Park, hour and a half from skiing, camping. So we're not far at all.
That's awesome, man. I got to go up in Rocky Mountain National Park with a mutual friend, one of the guys that's on staff with you, Joe Calm, and got to see elk. We saw 2 moose, saw plenty of sheep and goats. Didn't see any bear, but I think you guys only have black bear. You don't have grizzly, right?
Yeah, it's pretty much just black bear. You got to get, there are some grizzlies in the state, but you got to get pretty remote. You don't really, I think more people get killed every year from an elk, taking pictures of them, getting close.
Yeah.
Try to pet them. Then they come in contact with grizzlies.
That's funny, man. Well, right off the bat, man, why don't you tell the listeners just a little bit about yourself, what you do or like to do for just fun, excitement, adventure as a guy. I always like to hear that right off the bat. Yeah, I want to hear background, education, and what you do. But what do you like to do for fun, man? What really turns your crank?
Well, man, I grew up in Kentucky, and I'm a big basketball junkie, but I don't play quite as much anymore. But man, I love watching some Kentucky basketball, trying to get in the gym and ball a little bit. But I'm a big outdoors guy. I like to go camping. I do some hunting. Hunting out here is so much more different than in the South. You gotta have the right tags for the right zone, for the right day, it's crazy. And so with 4 little kids, I haven't gotten into it as much, but I've gone elk hunting a few times. So I like hunting, like camping. Went fly fishing for the very first time 2 weeks ago. Man, it was addicting. Love that. So anything outdoors, which is a good fit for here. And then I'm a big reader. If I'm at home, I try to read 40, 50 books a year through all different kinds of categories and stuff. So that's primarily, if I'm not doing something with my kids, that's what I'm doing for fun.
That's cool, man. Did you play basketball in high school?
I did. Yeah, I played in Kentucky in high school, and then I walked on at Union University in Jackson, Tennessee. Played for a couple of years there. So basketball is just always, I can get lost in the gym just shooting a ball by myself for hours upon hours. It's just a therapy for me to be in a gym just shooting some ball.
No, that's great, man. I really enjoy watching March Madness. I don't watch NBA at all.
I agree.
So
Yeah, and they try, like into the playoffs. You're like, oh man, you do know how to play defense. They start trying, but in college, it feels like it means something to the kids, and so I like watching college ball way better. Although my Wildcats broke my heart this year going out in the first round. Thought they had a chance for the championship, but oh well.
that's cool, man. So married, right? Kids. Tell us about that.
Yeah. Yep. My wife is from California. Met her in Tennessee, and we had a speech class together, and really, started dating a couple years after that, actually, and then got married, and struggled for a while to have kids, but once God opened the door, He left it open, and so we have a 10-year-old Quincy. She just turned 10. Our daughter, 7-year-old son Ace, 6-year-old daughter Bowen, and will be 2 in a couple of weeks. Lennon, who was our COVID baby, and also an unplanned child, but she's a blessing.
Yeah, that happened to my wife and I. We had 2 kids and using protection, and I come home one day and my wife is like, I'm pregnant, and I'm like, what? And she was actually kind of upset because pregnancy is really hard on her. Like, we've been in the ER so many times, and she wasn't upset that we were having a baby. She was like, here we go, 9 months of in and out of the ER. And, but man, we can't imagine our life without her. And so it's crazy, man.
That's the same way with our little one, Lennon. This is the honest truth of why we have her. I was leaving to come church plant, and I couldn't get into the doctor to get fixed, for that problem to be taken care of before we left Georgia while I had insurance. They were just backed up. And so I left my job, my church in Georgia, lost insurance, got out here, called. Self-pay was like $3,000. I don't have $3,000. I'm living on 100% support, so we didn't do it. And then I'm in the shower, getting ready on a Saturday night to go preach. I'm leaving in like 10 minutes. My wife walks in the bathroom with the little stick.
Oh boy.
She's like, Michael, we're pregnant. And I was like, there's no possible way. And she just sits down. The same thing. She has real difficult pregnancies. It was not in that moment a moment of joy, but man, Lennon's just she's spoiled. She's spoiled for sure. We love her.
That's great, man. Well, really important questions here. Favorite rock band? Do you have one? Bands?
I grew up in a pretty conservative home. I know we'll talk about that later. So I remember, you're gonna laugh at this. I remember somebody gave me a Alan Jackson CD.
Oh yeah.
My mom, I don't know how old I was. I was probably 8th or 9th grade. My mom had a real long, serious talk with me about garden, what goes into your mind, into your ears. And stuff,
wow.
So yeah, Alan Jackson, Chattahoochee.
Yeah.
So I didn't listen a ton, but this is super old school. But I love Aerosmith.
That works, man. That counts.
Yeah, I've always cranked that on my deployments. Getting ready to play ball and stuff. So Aerosmith is my go-to.
That's cool. Actually, yesterday I heard it on a movie recently, so I just like threw it on riding down the road in the truck. Was that song they got Back in the Saddle Again?
Yeah,
kind of like a pump you up song for the gym. How about favorite movies, man? What stands out to you?
Yeah, no, that's a different story. I love movies. I can't confirm or deny if I've seen them in theaters or the cleaned up version on TBS. So, but I do love movies. But Braveheart and Tombstone are my two tops. But I would also throw this one in, and it's not necessarily a movie, but the best ever is Band of Brothers, which is, it's 10 episodes kind of movie. But man, if Band of Brothers is on and I'm flipping through, the day's over. I just get sucked into Band of Brothers, man. It's my favorite.
Yeah, that was so well done and a good cast. I remember after that had come out, my wife got me one Christmas the whole DVD series, and it came in a really cool tin case and everything.
I've got it, man. I've got it.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. All right, so tell me about Mike Talley's life before you become a genuine believer in Christ. Tell us about home, godly influences, that kind of thing. You gave us a little bit growing up conservative. Sounds like mom was pretty strict on some things. Tell us about it.
Yeah, man. My life before Christ is as a, having trusted him as my savior, is pretty simple. I got saved when I was 6, pretty young age. So we grew up in a church, and it was a conservative, women can't wear pants. We go to camp, and they couldn't wear shorts, but they could wear these things called culottes, which were just super long
I know
shorts.
Culottes, dude.
They hang down to your ankle. And even as a kid, I was like, those are still shorts. They're just longer shorts, But grew up in that. I remember being at some summer camps, and it's 100 degrees, and I'm in blue jeans because we couldn't wear shorts either. Just like,
wow, even the guys.
Yeah, super conservative. And so we were in that till, and so I got saved at about 6. My mom and dad were both godly mom and dad. My mom was probably the spiritual leader of my home. My dad was quieter. I mean, he would talk and that type of stuff, but he was a quieter man, worked for Bell South phone company for his whole life. So just a hard worker outside. And so, I got saved at 6 and then stayed in the church. And then in 8th grade, kind of moved out of that super strict conservative church, joined a Southern Baptist church, and the pastor there.
Where was this at? What state?
Oh, yeah, this is in Kentucky, Madisonville.
That's right.
In western Kentucky, small town. And so the pastor of that church, Jeff Hendricks, man, I just remember he was so formative to me. In my 10th grade year, like happens a lot at camps and stuff, I felt God calling me to ministry, and I shared that with him. And I remember being in 10th grade, 11th grade, and especially during the summers, he would take me to lunches and meetings he had with deacons and elders and businessmen and stuff. Honestly, meetings I had no business being at as a 10th grader, 11th grader. I just sat at the table and eat my chips and salsa and be quiet and listen to them. And he just modeled for me ministry, a relationship with Christ. You hear a lot of guys say, hey, my first sermon was, 5 minutes long. And, that was all I had. But my first sermon, church was about 400 people. My first sermon was 30 minutes long, but he worked with me on it for 8 months before I preached it. I was preaching it into an empty auditorium with him sitting there taking notes and giving me feedback. And he didn't have to do that. And I don't know many pastors who would do that with a 10th grader, but it was real formative to my relationship with Christ. And so that, coupled with my love for basketball and my stubbornness, I never had the wild side. I'm very logical. So if something doesn't make sense, I'm very black and white. And the more you try to get me to do something, the less chance I'm going to do it. So I didn't want to get in trouble and miss basketball. Most of the partying and stuff just didn't make sense to me. I had fun, without partying in that way. And so, pretty calm, middle school, high school experience for me.
That's pretty cool, man. It made me think of something that I think it was a week ago. I was on the phone with a mutual friend, Josh Ray, down in Georgia. He's a church planner, pastor as well. And he said something, and when he first said this, it threw me off. And then I was like, oh, I see what you mean. And I totally agree with you. He said that discipleship is not the church's job. Discipleship is, I'm probably butchering how he said it, but it's not the church's job. It's really the people in the church their job. And what he meant by that is like sometimes we look at church to here's the discipleship program, here's the class, here's the video series to sign up for. And yet we're not seeing true life on life impact. But what that pastor did with you is like, come here, Mike. And he started just, building into you, taking you under his wing, that kind of thing. And Josh and I were having this conversation about how more men need to do that. Find one or two guys that you're just really going to build into them. We weren't saying that there can't be a Bible study at the church. There can't be, some kind of small group, that kind of thing. But the whole life on life impact is where the real discipleship comes, like the mentoring. And what are your thoughts on that, man?
Yeah, man. I love Josh Ray. He's spot on. I just think in general, I'm a little bit passionate about this, actually. I thought COVID was a real embarrassment to the Christian church in America. We lost our minds. We didn't know what to do. Hey, we can't all get together under this roof. So discipleship's not going to happen. Your spiritual growth's not going to happen, and we were, I know we'll talk about this in a minute. We were getting ready to plant in that year. And I just kept saying, man, how do we plant a church that's COVID proof, that, or government shutdown proof? How do we do that? And I think that's the key is churches they've taken on the responsibility of internally all discipleship being oversaw, ran, and heads counted by the church, right? Because what the problem is, Jason, if you're doing discipleship with two dudes who live there, I don't know, and I'm the pastor of the church, I don't know about that, so I can't count that. So then when I go somewhere and my buddy who's a pastor says, how many people you got in discipleship? My answer is, I don't know, right? Well, man, we're not called to have a big number on our roll in a discipleship class. And so we tell our church all the time, it's part of the name of our church, but we tell them all the time, you are the church. If you are not opening your doors and loving your neighbor and spending time with them and discipling them, then what are we doing? And so he's exactly right. We need some men who go, I'm going to take a couple men, not under your wing, man. If you're one step ahead of, I was reading in, I forget his name, talked about all the missionary work, something obedience, the cost of obedience, I think. Anyways, he was talking about the house church in China. And he said, he said the way the men there led was they would share pages of the Bible, not a Bible because they didn't have them, pages of the Bible. And the leader was the one who had the next page. Mm. So we think, hey, you got to be trained. It's got to go through the church. Like he's read Ephesians 2. You've only read Ephesians 1. So he's like, hey, come hang out with me. I'm going to tell you what I learned. Mm. And that's discipleship, man. Jesus modeled that. Jesus didn't set up classes and pull out of life to teach discipleship and then go back into life. He just walked down the road with the guys following and was like, hey, you see that over there? And discipling. Mm. So, yeah, man, Josh is exactly right. I'm 100%. And the other problem is men just don't do it because, I don't want to share my feelings, which is a bunch of garbage.
Yep. But I'm finding there are so many guys that are hungering for it and want it. And then there's some guys that they need it, but they also need to be doing it. And they're scared to do it. Like you're saying, I don't know enough. I'm not seminary trained. I'm still working through some issues. And I'm like, man, there's so many things like that are obstacles. And I'm like, they shouldn't be obstacles.
Yeah, man, those are, I'm more and more convinced the greatest description of Satan is the master deceiver, right? Not destroyer, not anything. It's deceiver, man. And he says to men, you're not ready. You got too much junk. You got too much baggage. And for a man, for anybody to say, okay, I'm going to believe that. One is to allow Satan to deceive them. Two is to not embrace the fullness of the gospel that you're forgiven and stand as righteous through Christ Jesus. And you can't look at scripture and see where God in the Old Testament, Jesus in the New Testament were lining up superstars to advance the kingdom. I mean, it's not there.
Yeah.
He lines up morons and mess ups and dudes with baggage and ladies who are, tons of baggage, and says, hey, if you'll just say yes, I'll use you. And so these guys, who are wanting it, but I don't have enough, that type of stuff. I don't have enough training, or I've got too much baggage. Man, that's Satan deceiving them. And it works, because then they don't do anything.
Tell us about your military career. How did you end up there? And just tell us, was that a good experience, bad experience? What were some big lessons from that?
Yeah. I loved my military career. It was a really tough decision for me to get out. I joke sometimes. I tell some people, don't tell anybody this, but the reason I got in, I was at Union University. I got a Christian studies degree. Had accepted the seminary. That's the next step: Christian school, seminary, student pastor, missions pastor, lead pastor, whatever. But man, Jason, I just couldn't be around Christians anymore. I was done with who had the longest quiet time and who, whatever. I just couldn't do it anymore. And so the thought of going to seminary was just like, it just took the life out of me. And so I was engaged to my wife, Gail, at the time, and her associate pastor in California was retired Air Force. And he took me around Vandenberg Air Force Base, which is actually kind of boring Air Force base, but when you've never been on one, it's kind of cool. And we drove around. I just remember him saying, Michael, if you want to be around lost people, go in the military, So I came back. To Union. This is in my last semester of my senior year. So this is sometime around April, probably. I come back. I apply for Air Force officer school because I'm going to have a college degree. So I want to be an officer. And the way the Air Force officer side works is there's 3 positions in the Air Force that you get wings. It's a pilot, a navigator, or an air battle manager. All the rest, you don't get wings. So I said, well, if I'm going to go in the Air Force, I want wings, right? So I applied, took went online, did everything, talked to a recruiter. And the next step in that is to take what they call the Air Force Officers Qualifying Test, which is a pretty challenging test. And you usually study for it for a few months, that kind of stuff. So I met with him on like a Monday or Tuesday. And then he said, yeah, we'll get you scheduled later this summer. Come take this test. I'll send you the material to study. So that's great. The next night he called me and said, hey, we had a cancellation tomorrow in Memphis. A guy backed out. So I have a spot. If you want, I want you to come take the test. Jason, I still didn't even know what AFOQT stood for. I hadn't cracked one book. I was umpiring that night till like midnight, got in my car, drove to Memphis. I got in my hotel about 2:30. The bus picked me up at 4 a.m. Took me to take this test that, I had no business taking at this point in my life. Just thought I did horrible. Take it. You go through your physical, where it's you and 20 guys in a room in your underwear, duck walking and, all that stuff. Did all that. It all got submitted. My recruiter says, hey, man, I really want to put you in for a non-flying position because they usually only take like engineering degrees and stuff. You've got a Christian studies degree. I said, no, if I'm going to be, I want to be flying. She said, okay. Well, the board for that position, a flying position, a rated position, got canceled. There's only 2 a year, so one got canceled. So he calls me back. He's like, hey, your test scores aren't amazing. That board got canceled because they don't need as many. Let's really put you in for a non-flying position. I said, no, we're going to stay in. It was 10 months after this test. I'm working in a grocery store in Kentucky to save for a ring. And he calls and says, well, I've been doing this for years. I've never seen anything like it. I guess God heard your prayers. but you got picked up for a rated position.
Hmm.
And so I went to officer school in Montgomery, Alabama, and which I highly recommend if you're getting ready to get married, go in the military the 3 months leading up to your wedding, because then you don't have to make any decisions. You don't have to go to any of the appointments on,
Yeah.
on what chair covers to pick out and stuff. So I was there over the summer, got out, got married, and then got sent to Panama City for my training. And so my initial job, I flew on what's called an E8C. It's called JSTARS. It has an air to ground radar, so it does surveillance, but then it's kind of like air traffic control in the air. So we would control planes on that. But then about halfway through, I volunteered for what's called TACP or JTAC, Joint Terminal Air Controller. You're on the ground, lasing targets, calling in airstrikes for the Army. So it's heavy combat. So I did that the last half of my career. It's a all volunteer male squadron. It's a pretty high washout rate. They don't. If you get your math wrong, bad things happen. So they don't give you many chances. They don't give you any chances to mess up during training to be a JTAC. But man, I just loved it so much. On that particular time, I had 50 to 70 guys under me. I just grew so much in leadership. It was a real intense career field. So you had to learn how to make decisions and lead men. Everybody was type A in this career field. There's no laid back. If you're dropping bombs, you're a door kicker. So you had to learn to lead well. And I really loved it. Had some great squadron commanders, had some bad ones. You learn from both. But the decision for me to get out, my commitment was up, and it would have been another 8-year commitment. So I was in 8 years, which puts you in at 16.
Where'd they deploy you at?
I did 3 flying tours in Iraq, and then 1 ground tour for a year in Afghanistan. So 4 total, and then 1, it's not a deployment, but it was about 80 days in South Korea, doing some training over there. But that was the big decision. In our 8 years of marriage, I was gone just a little over 4 years of it. We didn't have kids or anything yet, but we were trying to have kids. And my deployment cycle was home a year, gone a year. But even in that year home, you're gone 3 or 4 months training. So it's not like you're home for a year. So we made the decision to get out. But it was tough, man. I loved what I did. It was stressful. But I see, looking back, how God used that in what I'm doing now in church planning and just the leadership opportunity. Most guys at 24 are going in ministry or in seminary, or they're, leading a middle school small group, which that's not bad, but, they just never learned to lead men.
No, it's funny you say that, because I've had this conversation with a couple friends, and I told my son as well, if I had to do over again, knowing what I know now, of course we can't. I went the traditional route for guys that are going to ministry. I go to get my undergrad in biblical studies, youth ministry, and right out of that, I was like, man, I've got to, land a church job. So I found one that I went into. But looking back, with everything you're saying, I relate to, because I'm like, I wish that I would have done 2 years at Liberty University, which was a good Christian environment. I came home in the summer, was at a Christian camp. And so I was just always around these Christians, this bubble. Yeah. And that has its place, and it was good for me. But the last 2 years, I wish myself and a couple of friends that were pretty strong Christians, we would have transferred out to like UVA or somewhere else, like another school, and been in that environment, tried to be a light, finished up my degree there. And then I don't know if it's a regret, but again, if I had to do over again, I would have done a few years in the military, just because of what it really would have taught me so much with leadership and just being in that environment, and even just a lot of basic things I like to know as a man. Tactical things I would have loved to have gotten the training on, because now as I try to get certain things, you have to pay big bucks for that.
Yeah, you do. That's right. Yeah, man, I totally agree with you. I think there's, I want my kids to go to Christian college. I think public colleges are especially more and more today, or can be a real, uh, minefield for kids. And so I think there's a seasoning period, a maturity period that happens kind of in that freshman, sophomore year. Um, but I'm thankful. I think, especially, mostly men that go straight into ministry out of a Christian college or seminary, they don't know what the average guy they're trying to talk to in the seats. They don't know what their 9 to 5 is, man. They can't relate to it, and it comes across in their teaching and how they talk to them, and so there's a disconnect there. One, and then two. I mean, this is sad to say, but our churches don't produce leaders. They produce ministry managers, because it's all about, hey, manage this thing that's happening on Sunday or this whatever class. And they don't produce leaders, unfortunately. And so then you have somebody who wants to go church plant. I do leadership assessment for church planters out here in Denver, and it's crazy the lack of leadership. I mean, it just doesn't exist because they've managed a ministry, and so those skills you learn in a sec. I just think everybody who's going into ministry should spend 3 to 5 years in the whether it's military, whether it's at a business, they should spend that time in a secular job. And
I agree. And
really
if for no other reason, if you're thinking of being a pastor, you really need to understand what the average dude is dealing with and going through on a day-to-day basis at that job environment. And a lot of guys are just so clueless with some of these guys that are up at 3, 4 a.m. They're making the big commute, what it's like to work that blue collar job where you come home and you're literally exhausted, just wasted. And you can kind of.
Then your church is saying, hey, can you come volunteer? Can you come? And get mad that you're not being there. Yeah, they don't understand that. And it gives you, so even out here, I worked part-time at Cabela's when we were planting. I talked to somebody about Jesus almost every day working out here at Cabela's part-time. Well, on a church staff, generally, there's not a lot of lost people. Generally, you hire Christians on your church staff. So just having that secular experience, the military, whatever, man, you get to talk about Jesus to people so much more. And it refines how you do it, and it shapes how you do it, so that one day when you are preaching or you are teaching and leading a church, it will look different.
Yeah. And you and I both know, I'm not saying you, but for some guys in the ministry, you can make it a very comfortable, padded place to have a career. And I'm thankful that I've had to do some bivocational things and run a home improvement business. I've worked for home improvement businesses while I've been trying to do my itinerant speaking ministry because I had to supplement income. But it was one of the best things for me because you are reminded, again, like I said, that there are dudes that are up every day at 4 a.m. They're just getting down the coffee, throwing lunch together. They're on the road, and then they're busting their butt all day. And then it's get home, help the wife with the kids, work on the house, all of that. And then you're trying to figure out, okay, I know Sunday I'm going to church for worship, but where's that place that I serve in church? And it helped me just understand where guys are. There are a lot of guys that are like, yeah, I would love to do more with the church and serving in the church, but man, this is where I'm at with my job. And my first ministry is at home, which is where I want it to be. And some of these guys are wasted, pretty burnt out even with that. They're like, I'm not having the time with my kids that I want. I'm not even leading in any kind of prayer time. And I hear it all the time.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And those men in your church, if you've never experienced that, they know it. And so they just feel a disconnect. They feel like, hey, you don't know what I'm going through. But the second you can say, yeah, man, I remember when, and you talk about, supplementing your income, you talk about your military experience, you talk about that job you had, like you'll see their eyes light up.
It's credibility.
Because now they're looking at somebody who they're complaining, I don't think I can do it. And they're looking at somebody who's doing it or
Mm-hmm.
has done it. And now they're going, oh, okay, well, I need to listen to you because who you are, what you've done is what I'm sitting here saying I want. I just don't think I can do it. And they listen to you.
Mm.
Because most men think a pastor of a church, they already think we only work on Sundays for an hour.
Yep.
And most of the time they just think it's a comfortable, cushy, like, oh, I wish I could have that job,
Yep.
I mean, that's just the reality.
I remember one of my friends in Missouri when I was living out there, he said at his church, sorry, he said, the pastor I have now is the first pastor that I truly respect, and now I love listening to him. I'm getting so much. And I go, well, what is it about him? What did that for you? Like, what makes him so unique? Because the guy grew up in church his whole life, and he was a blue-collar guy, man, hard worker, that kind of thing. He said, we have 2 church work days per year on the church property. We're fixing up the building and all this. And he said, this is the first church I've ever been a part of that the lead pastor is the first one there, and he doesn't tell us all what to do. Somebody else, like just a lay person, is leading up all the projects, and the pastor is there in the dirt doing everything, cleaning, painting, mulching, whatever, and he's the last one to leave. And he goes, I watched that. I observed that every time we had a work day. And he said, I've never seen a pastor work, to be honest. He said they were always the one like reading the list to us and sipping coffee for work day. And I was like, wow, like I don't want to follow a quote unquote pastor like that. Like just because of the type of background I was raised in and just the kind of guys I respect. Like you've got to be a worker and be willing to get in there and just like, let's get it done.
It's 100% true, man. I've even found out here church planning, we're set up in tear down. So we bring 2 trailers, pull all the stuff out, take it all in, set it all up. But, it's work every week. And so when we're first starting, I mean, for the first year or so, I'd bring a change of clothes because I was sweating, I'm working my tail off and I'm preaching, and, a lot of pastors go in the green room and look over the message and stuff. Man, I'm on the back end of a trailer slinging equipment, sweating with the guys, would go in the bathroom, wipe down with a paper towel, throw a new shirt on. And here's what happened, Jason. I was doing that. I was committed to doing that. And then men in the church, like Joe Collum, you mentioned him, he's out here. Some other men started coming to me and saying, hey, Talley, stop, man. We got this. Thanks for your help. We appreciate your hard work, but we got this. I don't know that I think had I not been on the trailer with them at the beginning, they would have begrudged me.
Yeah.
Because they're working and I'm showing up, but because I was working and they said, hey, you're preaching. We want you to go focus on that. And so now I get there a little bit later. I still help. I put my energy into tear down because the message is over and everything, so I'm on the trailer working with them, but you earn that respect as a pastor. I think you should earn that respect from being a hard worker when there's work to be done, and let the people around you say, hey, we want you to take a step back here and let us handle this, not just do it on your own, not just step back on your own and say, hey, all of you go do this.
Yeah, I agree. I've got another good friend. He's like a mentor, church planner as well. He's in Virginia. And dude, he is so intentional about his church is, I would say, 99% blue collar people, farmers, all of that. But he takes his time that he needs to for the office. There's definitely time to read, study, prepare, phone calls, that kind of thing. But when he doesn't need to be in the office, he's very intentional. I could call him any time of the week, and I'm always like, where are you? What are you doing? And he's like, man, I'm traveling out to Old Red's farm. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, it could literally, Mike, it could be like, he's got the cattle that he's got to, take them in, process, do this. He's baling this. And I'm just going to go help him for a few hours. Yeah. Just a guy in my church. And because he's done that, man, he has earned so much credibility, and they love him, they respect him. Another thing like that bothers me sometimes with pastors too is I love teaching and preaching, and it's important, and guys should always be working to refine that, get better at it, bring a good message on Sunday. Dude, it's paramount. It's so important. But at the same time, I've gotten so bothered with dudes that bring that message and people are like, oh, I love it, man. And love coming to hear this guy. I drive 2 hours to hear this guy. But when it's time for the message to be over and people are interacting, I've often seen pastors kind of, I guess it's the green room, go to the green room. Like, where are they? Where did they go? And I don't see some of them like interacting with the people, like just be out there, be social, mingle, that kind of thing. What are your thoughts on that? Have you seen that kind of thing too?
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I don't know that there's a right or wrong necessarily. I get some of these guys in some of these big churches. Maybe it's just too overwhelming to go out and be in a lobby and meet people. I'm not in that situation. Our church is 115 people, but those are the people that God's called me to shepherd. I don't think that changes based on the number. If they're in your church, you're supposed to be shepherding them. And so, for me, I go out there and shake hands and say hi and pray with people and talk with people and spend time with people.
Yeah. I think it's so important, man. Like I remember the two most influential guys that influenced me. Well, two of the most. There was more, but one was Tim Duggins. He's the guy I'm talking about in Virginia that church planted as pastor and now, but he was my youth pastor, and he was great at delivering a message, but he was really good at just, we had a huge church, huge youth ministry, but before and after, always interacting with people, being social, whatever. And then I did a mentorship for a while with under Clayton King, and Clayton was really big. Like we would be at camps with thousands of students, or we would be at some of these big churches, and I'd just be tagging along with him at New Spring or wherever. He's good in the pulpit, but when he's preaching, but he was really good about just mingling with people, where I'm more, I'll do that because I know I should, but then I'm like, man, I need to withdraw for a while and get ready for the next service time or something like that. Yeah. But I just think it's so important, man. Sometimes I've been to certain churches where I'm just like, man, the only time I see the pastor is when it's like, it's stage time. And then I don't see him before the service and between the service, after the service. And I think just that time of interacting, even if it's like just the old school Baptist churches that you and I grew up in, the pastor being at the door when you're leaving, shaking hands. Hey, thanks for coming. How's your aunt doing? That kind of thing. Like that personal touch.
I think it's good for the people to see, if the only time they see the pastor is on the stage, and you begin to kind of create a church around a personality, which is real dangerous. We've seen that. I mean, we've seen that a lot in the news and, past personality driven churches. Now, it's impossible to have a church that doesn't have a bend towards the lead pastor's personality. It's impossible. He's speaking, whatever, 30 to 50 times a year. That's going to happen to some degree, but I think it's important as a pastor to negate it as much as you can. And so, whether that's going out and getting a cup of coffee out in the lobby after the service and just walking, just stand by the door, hey, this is the pastor's, and you just walk around and hang out with some people, go in the nursery and hold a baby so the volunteer can leave early, because they've been in there with screaming babies for an hour.
I heard did that a lot was I read the biography of A.W. Tozer, and they said he wasn't the best people person, but that dude always was going in the nursery with the babies. And sometimes they were like, where is he? We know where he's at. So it was funny to me.
Well, it's people are draining to me. I'm not naturally like, hey, want to be the center, which people find strange, but it's true. I need to withdraw. I need to have some me time.
I get that.
But I also know during that, 20 minutes, 30 minutes after the service, before the service, just going around talking to people, loving them and hugging them. The message, by that point, one, if your message ain't ready, then you need the Holy Spirit anyways, because you're not getting it ready in the last 30 minutes. I always this story always this keeps me humble. I spoke. I was probably in college, and I spoke at that church back in Kentucky. And after the service, it was old school where you stand up, you line up by the door, and they all come out, say hi. And I'm standing next to the senior pastor. And this lady, I don't know, she's probably in her 40s. She comes out, she shakes my hand. It's me. And then the senior pastor shakes my hand. Hey, Michael, good to see you today. And then she shakes his hand. Now, I've just preached for 40 minutes on stage. There's no other preachers. There's me. Music and me, invitation. I lead the stage. Shakes my hand. Good to see you. Shakes his hand. Pastor Jeff, great word today. Really got a lot out of that. And walked out and I looked at him and I was like, man, either I'm a horrible communicator or there's too much weight sometimes on the preaching. And so I always remember that maybe we all should evaluate the importance of our 30 minutes in the pulpit a little less on a pedestal than we typically do.
Yeah, the church that I was in high school that I really became a believer in, thought I was a believer, but really God got a hold of me in high school. But it was one of the largest Southern Baptist churches in America at the time. And our pastor, Dr. Herb Fitzpatrick, he used to serve on the board at Liberty. And he was a peculiar guy, man, because he was not the best preacher. Some would say kind of boring. But because he was so good with people and loving them, he never forgot a name. He was just one of those guys. If he met Mike Talley, who visited for a service with his family, and you said, hey, pastor, pray for my mom. She's in the hospital with cancer. And you came back 6 months later, he's going to go, Mike, how's your mom? I've been praying for her. Like, it was crazy. But I think I asked him one time, a friend of mine asked him, how in the world did you, Pastor Fitz, who's not that great of a speaker, preacher, I can't believe he said this, but he said, how did you grow one of the largest Southern Baptist churches in America? And he said, I didn't do it in the pulpit. You guys know I'm not the best speaker. He said, I did it in living rooms. I did it in coffee shops. I did it beside beds in hospitals. He said, I did it on a golf course with guys. I did it out in that, the foyer talking with people. And he goes, I know my strengths and my weaknesses. And he goes, but I know people. I love them. And he was faithful on that old school Baptist Thursday night visitation. He made a point. I'm going to be in every one of my church people's home at some point. And I remember him visiting us. I remember him recruiting me to come to the Christian high school there. He's the reason I went there and the reason I ended up getting saved in a chapel service at that Christian high school. And that's just pretty cool. And I've always, like when I first started with my itinerant ministry, Mike, I wanted to be one of the best big name youth and men's speakers in the country. I wanted to be sought after. I wanted everybody dropping my name, that kind of thing. And I got sick of that. I got disgusted with that and what I was pursuing, and just decided like, that's not what we're called to be, man. Like the time on the stage is important. I want to be a good speaker, but more importantly, man, like I'm not trying to grow my brand. I'm trying to grow a kingdom. And there's also something about the dude off the stage. I know we're camping out here for a while, but I think that there's going to be a lot of guys that tune into this that are either pastors, church planners, or thinking about doing that. And I just can't say enough about, first and foremost, being a people person. Know your people, know your congregation, know the guys, what they're going through. Get out there. Some people may be like, man, it's a waste of time for me to be up in a living room. It's a waste of time for me to go have that cup of coffee. I could be doing this. And I'm like, it's not a waste of time, man. It's not a waste of time.
It's not, man. And I feel you and I understand, you look around, you see pastors and you're like, man, I want a church that size and, speaking ministry that size. And I get that. That's human nature. And those sizes are not wrong. God has put those men in that place or used them. Sometimes maybe in spite of them, he uses them, right? Um,
But a lot of
but I,
people
I
are
mean,
getting tired of the celebrity pastor, man.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree with that at all. I think they are, but that should be indifferent to me and what I'm doing. My success is these two things and these two things only: obedience and faithfulness,
I
and that's
like it.
it. Obedience and faithfulness. Now, that's not an excuse to be lazy. Right? That's not an excuse to not develop your preaching, develop your speaking, develop yourself as a leader. It's not an excuse to go. It's fine that there's 10 people in my church, and you're just lazy about things, right?
That's good.
God's not going to bless them. You need to work hard at what He's called you to do. But your measurement is: am I being faithful and am I being obedient? Not how many people do I have, or how many times am I speaking a year? God does not love the pastor who pastors 10,000 more than He loves the pastor who pastors 50. It
Uh,
doesn't work that way.
I love it
Um,
because you know that I dealt with that whole thing. I'd go to a conference and someone would say, how many are at your church? How many are you running in your youth ministry? How many are part of your discipleship class? And then when I became like doing evangelism, I tenured speaking. How many gigs are you getting a year? What size camp is that? And it was wearing on me, man. And it was
yeah,
messing me up inside. And I finally had to like step back from it. And I started working more of the trades, my home improvement business. And I did that just because I was getting caught up in it, and I was feeling like I'm not good enough. And I quit following certain guys on Twitter. I quit following certain pastors, ministries, and I'm like, I'm done. Because either I think I'm better or I think I'm
yeah,
not as good, that kind of thing. And to go back to just the basics of what you said, just be faithful, Jason, just be obedient. And if it is the camp that says, we only got 30 kids coming, it's so freaking what? Like,
right,
let's go. Let's do this.
right.
And if it's just a couple guys a week that I get to do some Zoom meetings and do some coaching in their life and helping them through different addictions and things like that, I'm finally at a place where I'm like, I love this. I'm thankful for this because I feel like I've gotten out of that rat race, whatever.
Yeah,
And
yeah. It's easy to get in, man. It's easy to stay in. But at the end of the day, I just go back to: I'm not going to stand before my Creator with the attendance of my church
mm,
where he counts it out. It's not going to happen. I'm going to stand before Him, and he's going to judge me on my obedience and my faithfulness,
mm,
and that's it. Wherever He's placed me, and so these guys who. And listen, I want our church to grow. We take attendance at our church on a Sunday morning.
yeah.
We want it to grow. We want more. But I know a pastor. He told a friend of mine who's planting a church. He said, "I'm going to baptize more people this year than you will your entire life." Come
Mm.
on, man. Do you think that was God? Like, it's good that you're baptizing a lot of people. Do you think God is honored in that attitude?
Mm-mm.
No,
Man, that grates me.
no,
Ugh.
He's not. And so, I just can't. I can't worry about that. That's out of my control. That's out of my realm of responsibility. I need to be faithful and obedient, not be lazy. Pastors use that as an excuse to be lazy. Hey, God just called me here, and I'm just going to keep doing what I've been doing. Well, maybe what you've been doing is horrible, and you should uh, grow yourself as a leader and as a pastor. Like, don't be lazy. Work hard.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, faithful and obedient is what we're called to be.
Yeah, man. And I've got such a respect for church planners, the ones that I know. Now, maybe there's some outlier that is not this, but they had a background already, not just with ministry, but they understood hard work, sacrifice. We got to do whatever it takes right now. We're not saying it's always going to be like this, but right now, to get this thing off the ground, they understand the hustle that it involves. And like you're saying, here comes the trailer, unload, load it back up. And we're going to do it every single week. And it's just hard, man. It's hard work. You don't have the funding that some of the larger, more established churches are. You're trying to do the best with what you have. You don't have this huge resource of people to pull from and be like, okay, who's running the media here and who's making sure the foyer looks really cool, like the cafe atmosphere we want. You know, it's overwhelming, bro.
Yeah, man. Church planning's, you know, it's a whole nother world. I joke sometimes. Uh, the military did help me as far as leadership and stuff. And I say about the only difference in the hard work and stressfulness is that nobody's trying to actually shoot me while I'm planting a church, not yet anyway.
Yeah.
But it's tough, man. The funding piece, we're in an expensive city out here. Denver metro area is one of the most expensive places in the country. Land's crazy. It's an unchurched, it's 88 to 92% just spiritually disconnected, don't care. It's maybe 2 to 4% Protestant. In the South, and we need churches in the South. I'm not knocking that, but in the South, I don't know that I ever met somebody who hadn't been to church.
Mm-hmm.
They'd gone on Christmas or Easter, maybe 10 years ago, but they've been. But I invited one of my neighbors here and said, "Hey, man, love for you to go to church." And he said, "What do you do there?" I said, "Well, it's church." "Well, what do you mean?" And he's like, "Well, I've never been." I said, "You've never been to church?" Not once. And he's like, "No. My parents they didn't go. I've never been." He's a 40-year-old man, 4 kids, and never stepped foot in the church,
Wow.
And so it's a lot of work. Then you talk.
I love that you're having that conversation though with a neighbor. You've learned something incredible about him and also about the people you're trying to reach out there. And then there's this invitation to come. Like I love that. I love that you're in an area that isn't the quote unquote Bible Belt. I know the Bible Belt still has a lot of lost people. The problem with the Bible Belt is you got a lot of people that don't think that they're saved, but they're not. But go ahead, man.
No,
tell us some more about church planning out there, man.
Yeah. So our church is named Church 8025, which everybody says, hey, why is that? So I'm going to explain it to you the way I would somebody who asks.
Mm-hmm.
Jason, what's the number on the front of your house?
1946.
1946. So 8025 is the number over my garage where we met the first time around my kitchen table praying for church, and we'd have a name, that type of stuff. And so we tell people, like, you are the church. Sunday is a place we gather, not to, you see those signs, hey, you're being sent to the mission field. Like, hey, this was the rally. We prepared you to send you now into the mission field when you leave a church. But I kind of think it's backwards, man. I think Sunday is a place that at least it should be 50-50, where you gather to celebrate the followers of Jesus being the church Monday through Saturday in their homes, like, man, stop. If you come to church every single Sunday and you can't tell me your neighbor's name, we're doing this wrong. Like, they live next door to you. Where are they going to go when they die? Like that's have them over, have dinner with them. Oh, well, we're not the same kind of people. Who cares? Like, that's the person Jesus went in their house. And so Church 8025 is a reminder to everybody, you got a number on the front of your house. Don't come in here and praise Jesus and pray that people get saved and go home and lock your front door and shut your garage as soon as you get home. God ain't going to answer that prayer, right? Like, he put you in that neighborhood so you could get to know the person across the street from you and love them and help them and share Jesus with them. And so that's really our focus, is for people to be the church. We tell them all the time, you are the church. And so we started in
right there. You just punched me in the face because I just moved in a neighborhood here. We just built a house and we're in a very affluent area, very affluent neighborhood. And I need to do better. I need to get out there and get to know them. And one of my hesitations with a couple of them is the whole, I know that they got money. there's an attitude with them. I've already picked up. They complain about stuff already that I'm not doing right with the HOA thing, whatever. And for you, with what you just said, to help me go, you know what? But they're still lost. I'm here for a reason. They act that way for a freaking reason. And I got to go be Jesus. I needed to hear that, man.
You got to, man. And so I mowed one of my neighbor's yard across the way, mowed her front yard, push mowed it. It was just out of control. It's probably took me 2 hours. Mower broke down. You know that anytime you try to do something nice, everything goes wrong. That night, I got an email from her. It said, basically, never step foot on my property again. How dare you? Like, just destroying me. Well, I mean, I still see she's right across the road from me, and I could just be mad and mean. I still say hi. Hey, good morning. Hope you're having a good day. It's not normal. It's not easy. We judge people, but I just think if those people don't know us, when they have no matter how affluent they are, when they have that moment of crisis in their life and they go, who do I turn to? I need help. Well, if they don't know me, then they're not going to come to me, and I can't point them on to Jesus.
That's right.
And so like the guy that I've been telling, invited to church and stuff, he hadn't gotten saved. His family hadn't gotten saved. But we have them over. They come to dinner. We love on their kids. And I know when change or tragedy happens in his life, I know he's going to pick the phone up and call me.
Yeah. And what has happened to the dudes that take that old school missionary mindset, like a Hudson Taylor or a Adoniram Judson or whatever, all these guys I remember reading about, that it's like, I'm here. I'm in Thornton. I'm not going anywhere. If it's 15 years down the road and this guy finally goes, I know one guy that loves me, cares about my family, and he cuts it straight, and I need some help. His name's Mike Talley. Like, you got to be in it, especially in an area like you're at, man. Like, long haul, dude. Yeah,
you do. You gotta just let them know you're there and that you don't want anything from them. You want something for them. It's not a bait and switch. I mean, he knows I pastor a church. He knows I want him to love Jesus, but he doesn't. And they've come to church maybe one time on, an Easter Sunday. But his kid is on my kid's baseball team. We hang out with them, and you just gotta work it into your circle of life, man. You're gonna eat dinner on a Friday night anyways. Have them over to eat dinner with you. And it's like,
is this stuff that you're constantly throwing out to your congregation out there?
All the time. We have a huge banner in the back of our church that we set up and tear down, and all the volunteers hate me because we have it, because it's huge and it takes a lot of time to set up and tear down. But it says, you are the church. And I tell people this all the time. Our goal is not for you to attend church, which sounds counterproductive when you're trying to plant a church. But our goal is not for people to attend church, right? You can be a church attender and not a follower of Jesus. You cannot be a follower of Jesus and not attend church, because he commands us to have community and walking together. But if you're a follower of Jesus, you will love your neighbors. You will reach out to those people. If you're a church attender, you may or may not, and you probably won't. And so we push it all the time. My prayer, and this sounds crazy too, but as a church planter, one of my prayers is that more people will get saved outside the walls of our church than inside. Because then we're being the church, then COVID can come along, then the government can come along, whatever can shut your Sunday gathering down, and the gospel's still going forward because people know how to love and be the church.
So what I wrote down just now is, our goal is not for you to attend church. Our goal is for you to be the church.
That's right.
All right. Making sure I got that. I like it.
Yeah. Because so many people just check that box, man. I attended church this week.
Yep.
And again,
that's consumer mindset too, man.
Yeah. My favorite question is, that's great, man. What's going on in your neighbor's life? I don't know. Well, then you just attended church. You're not being the church. That's the closest person to you. You share a front yard. You share a backyard. Like, that's the easiest person for you to get to know. And if we're not doing that, then you know, then it's foolish of us and arrogant of us to then sit back and pray that God would do something in people's lives around us.
I like it. What do you say to the Christian guy who feels bored or annoyed with quote unquote church or Christianity in general?
Oh man, I would say they don't. I would say they don't know what it is to follow Jesus,
Mm.
right? Because most of the guys who would say that is like, oh, that's soft. That's not for me. I want to be in the woods. I want to be hunting. Whatever. That's not manly enough. But man, where do you read in Scripture that what Jesus calls a follower of Him to be is anything less than dangerous and exciting and tough and like, hey,
Well, it
pick up
goes
your
back to what
cross.
you just said. I'm thinking, I don't mean to cut you off, but
No, you're good.
you were just pushing people to say, our goal is not for you to be a church attender.
Sure.
So I see guys that are like, I'm bored and I'm annoyed with this because all it ends up coming down to is put me in a nice theater style chair, lights, smoke machine, cameras, and they become consumers unless they can rise to the level of being one of the players on the stage, right? And yet there's something that's missing. Like what you're trying to help your people understand is be the church, get in the game, get active, put a hand to the plow. Like, let's go.
I think one of the areas we miss this, and it's especially with men, is we say attend church and serve, right? You hear that a lot, serve in the church, and then we basically say, hey, that's it. And so the guy who runs a business, the guy who works works with his hands, whatever, in his mind, he's thinking, okay, so you're telling me I got to sit here for 40 minutes on a Sunday and stand at the door and hand out a bulletin.
Mm.
That's it. Well, Jason, I wouldn't sign up for that, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's like in my head, I'm thinking a table can do what you're doing. You could just set the bulletins on it. You know what I mean? Like people can make their own coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And so we tell our people all the time, we need your help in the church, but please do not think that helping in the church, set up, tear down, all those things, it's important. We need you to do it so that we can have Sunday gathering. But please do not think that is you serving the kingdom of God in its entirety. That is baby step 101. I'm much more interested in you serving outside of this church in your community than pouring the coffee on Sunday mornings. And so I think we've set the bar. So there's a great book by J.T. English called Deep Discipleship. I think we've set the bar.
What is it again? J.T. English?
Yep. Deep Discipleship.
Okay, go ahead.
We've set the bar so low on following Jesus that people are like, man, I can take it or leave it. That didn't change my life at all. Like if it's not changing their life, there comes a point where you go, I don't want to do this anymore. I'd rather go hiking. I'd rather go fishing. I'd rather go hunting. I have more fun, And so
it's the consumerism that's killing some guys. That if all of this is sit here and consume, just be part of the 45-minute thing. Like the way I'm wired, I'm like, I'm out. I don't want to just be a consumer. Now there's times I'm like, man, I need my tank filled and I'm in tears after hearing that worship music and that message, and sometimes even like, wow, that 10-minute video they showed of the highlights of the mission trip, like I'm moved. It has its place, but help me engage is what I'm looking for as a man. And that's why I like all of your answers. I'm just trying to understand some of these guys that tell me, man, I'm just so bored or I'm annoyed with church and I'm annoyed with Christianity because I feel like that. And I'm like, no, I believe that you're bored and annoyed with the brand of church or Christianity that you've been handed or put before you, whatever that is.
I agree, man. I was going to say this a minute ago, but the call of Jesus is not it's not be comfortable and sit in a nice room for 40 minutes a week, right? The call of Jesus is, I just talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Unless you're willing to get rid of all your possessions, unless you're willing to hate your mother and father, your brother and sister, your son and daughter, your own life, unless you're willing to carry your cross and come after me and die. What's boring about that, man? That's crazy. The reason men are bored is because they think that has to happen in 40 minutes from 10 a.m. to 10:45 on Sunday morning, and it doesn't. You know how I know it doesn't? Is because Sunday morning, 10 a.m. to 10:45 didn't exist when Jesus made that statement. Right? Sunday morning church didn't exist. Jesus said, hey, I'm calling you to something greater. It's going to cost you. You got to be willing to sacrifice. Well, when you start doing that, when you start working your job as not a Christian, a follower of Jesus, a devoted follower of Jesus, you start working your job, you start living in your neighborhood, you start coaching your kid's team with that mindset. Well, man, like you can't help but be living on mission. Like Sunday morning's the easiest thing. Like
you got your radar up because you're looking, where's the opportunity?
Yeah.
Where can I build the kingdom? And a lot of people don't have any radar up.
They don't have it at all. And that's the fault of pastors and churches for saying, hey, all maturity and growth and discipleship happens in our scheduled box, right? And I really think, guys, especially if they're followers of Jesus, Jason, if you came to my church, there's only so much I can teach you. There comes a point where it's like, I've heard Talley talk about this before. And that's not a bad thing. That's just reality, And so what's your next step? The reason you would probably get bored in that context, or men especially get bored in church, is because they're not going out and being the church. Because you never run out of opportunities to have a conversation with another man about his marriage, about his family, about his work, about Jesus, and begin pointing him. Now, that doesn't mean he's going to repent of all his sins and get saved right there. But you never run out of those opportunities. And I think that's what Jesus is saying when he says, take up your cross and follow me. Like, you got to be going somewhere. And so you're not getting to know your neighbors. You're not getting to know the people you work with, the people at your gym, not just to know them, but to have spiritual conversations at some point when they present themselves at the right time. Then I think you are going to get stagnant and you are going to get frustrated. And I'm tired of this Christianity. But I would say it's because you're not following Jesus the way Jesus has called you to follow him.
That's good stuff. Well, Mike, it's been a good conversation. It's been interesting for me, enlightening. It's been challenging, convicting, some of it, especially about my neighbors that freaking annoy me right now. And I judge them because I'm living in a yuppie neighborhood, and I'm not a yuppie. Wasn't raised by that. But you know what? Got to do what I got to do. So I appreciate you coming on here, man. And how can guys connect with you, man, whether it's through email, website, social media, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah. All of my personal social media is at mtalley23.
At mtalley, that is Talley 23.
23. Yep, that's all my personal. My email is michael@church8025.com.
Michael at church8025.com.
Yep, that's right. And then you can see about our church and what's going on there. We're trying to buy some land up here right now. It's crazy. But you can see all that stuff, information at church8025.com.
Cool, man. I'm going to put all of that in the show notes, guys, for Mike Talley, and want to encourage you to check out what's going on at church8025.com. They are in the midst of just a big kind of goal that they have to get a piece of property for their church, to build an actual building that their church can use, to move away from the setup and tear down every Sunday in a hotel space where they're at. So, guys, check it out. And I know for a fact that Mike himself and the other guys that are serving there as pastors and leaders, they're raising a lot of their own support. So if there's anything you can do or want to do to help out, church8025.com. Anything else, man, Mike? Did I leave anything out?
No, you didn't, man. I just want to say I appreciate it. I appreciate you being faithful and obedient, plugging away in this podcast, man, and your own ministry. I know it speaks to a lot of men. I hear it. And so keep it up, man. Keep being faithful. God's using you. Sometimes, we see the overnight success, but we don't know that the overnight success took 30 years.
Yeah.
So keep plugging away, man. God's using you.
No, I appreciate it, man. And I'm looking forward to, I'm hoping this fall, September-ish, to come out to Colorado, see what's going on at Church 8025, and get back up into Rocky Mountain National Park for a while and have a little break up there.
You're welcome anytime, man. Let's do it. I'll take you fly fishing. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm addicted. So come on out. Let's do it.
I'm down. Hey, thanks, brother. Love you, man. All right, well, I thought that was a good interview with Mike Talley, church planter, pastor, Church 8025, Thornton, Colorado. Man, a couple things that I wanted to reiterate that I got from that conversation that really helped me. I think it'll help you too, that Mike said. Here's the first one. Our churches generally don't produce leaders. They produce ministry managers, unfortunately. That is so true. We need to be producing leaders, not ministry managers. And there's a big difference. He also said, we both kind of agreed, those preparing for pastoral ministry need to first spend a substantial amount of time working a secular job, some sort of secular job, or even be in the military for a while, because it'll help them better understand how to serve and lead the men in their church or their future church, and also to serve and reach the lost men in their community. It would be so beneficial for you guys that are preparing to be pastors, youth pastors, missionaries, whatever. Spend some time working a secular job or in the military. Do you well. And then he said, pastors should earn the respect of the men in their church by being a hard worker. Dude, I love this. You should be at least one of the hardest working men in your church. You don't want guys in your church just saying, yeah, he's a good speaker, he's a good teacher. That's great. Okay. But it should be more than that. He cares about us. He loves the Lord. No, he loves the Lord. You want to hear them also say, that dude's a hard worker. He gets after it. If there's a church work day, you ought to be the first one to show up, last one to leave. You ought to have the sweatiest, dirtiest, smelliest t-shirt by the end of the day. You know what I mean? Let them see that. If you find out a couple guys in the church are building a shed or something, then go get in there. Do it, man. If you take your church on a mission trip to Guatemala, they're building like some kind of house or orphanage building or something. Don't just be the supervisor. Don't just be like teaching the Bible lesson in the morning. Get in there, mix the concrete, lay the bricks, frame it up, you get my point. Be a hard worker. And you'd be surprised how many men, certain men that you want, you're going to begin to attract. And that are going to tune in more to when you preach than they ever have before. Another thing he said that I really liked is our goal is not for you to attend church. Our goal is for you to be the church. The call of Jesus is not come sit in a comfortable church service. That's so true. That's why so many guys are, I believe, bored with church or Christianity, because it really comes down to just come attend and sit and watch what happens up here on the stage. Listen, watch the performers. No, they're worship leaders. Watch them. Watch what they do. Watch how they worship. Watch this video I'm going to show you. That all has its place. but men need to be part of something, a mission, a battle. Bring them in. Don't just be like, well, I need some guys to pass out bulletins. I need some guys to, direct traffic in the parking lot. Dude, they need more than that. Are you going to lose them? Losing me. He says he measures my success. He measures his success by two things: obedience and faithfulness. Obedience and faithfulness. Not how many people are coming, how many people got saved, how many people are baptized, how many are in small group, blah, blah, blah. How many letters do you have behind your name? Did you get your PhD yet, Pastor? Two things: obedience, faithfulness. And then he said, this was really good too. You got to let them know, talking about non-believers, you got to let them know that you don't want anything from them, but you want something for them. He said, my prayer is that more people get saved outside the walls of our church than within it, because then we're being the church. My favorite question for my church people is, what's going on in your neighbor's life? Because if they don't know that, then they're not being the church. They just attend church. They're not being the church. And if we don't even know our neighbors, then he says it's foolish for us to sit back and pray for God to do something in those people's lives. That was a roundhouse kick to my freaking nose. Man, don't do it again, man. Stop. Just, ow. Ow, Mike, ow. It was good, man. Then he recommended reading the book Deep Discipleship: How the Church Makes Whole Disciples of Jesus by J.T. English. So I ordered that on Amazon today for myself, not for you. Get your own. And that's it. Hey, guys, if you never left a rating and review for the Grizz Podcast, you're a selfish punk. Go leave a rating and review for the Grizz Podcast. It'll take you like 1 minute. Pull your car, your truck over right now. Put it in park. Leave a rating and review. And then if this episode would benefit a friend, maybe a pastor friend or somebody training to be a pastor or a youth pastor, dude, send them a link. Share it. Don't be a selfish punk. Come on, nah. That's what you got to do, man. Anyway, if you want to get to know more about me, contact me, learn more about the ministry. If you're new, whatever, go to narrowtrail.com, narrowtrail.com. It's all there, man. It's all there. All right. I'm out.
You've been listening to the Grizz Podcast, an outreach of Narrow Trail Ministries, Incorporated. If this podcast has been helping to guide, encourage, and equip you to live the manly life that God's calling you to live, then please consider partnering with us by giving a tax-exempt donation to our nonprofit ministry. Your financial gift will help us continue to improve and expand our impact around the world. You can make your secure online donation at thegrizzpodcast.com. Now, it's time to take what you've learned and chew on it. And then you need to step up, man up, and go live it out. Grizzin', you know what I'm saying.